This video is extremely important to me, and I know you've probably all seen it before because we all love Core A gaming, but I hope you'll give me the next 5 minutes and 24 seconds of your time to relive it together. The way that it attempts to explain how you and I can approach fighting games so much differently and still come to the same conclusions is truly something beautiful. So I hope you'll give me the next few minutes to get my opinions on it. And if you feel like I've added anything to your viewing experience by the end of this, I hope you'll consider subscribing.
As illustrated in the previous video, a fighting game's replay value comes from having human opponents to play against.
Unfortunately, single-player fighting games are
only,
not very
nothing
good.
Can match the depth
For the single-player in fighting games,
overcoming a sentient being with the same desire to come out on top. The human aspect is what makes coming up with a winning strategy so complicated, and it's why traditional game guides are more likely to have things like combos and setups as opposed to a section on how to frustrate your opponent. Luckily, we have some great resources on fighting game theory like SonicHurricane.com's Footsie's Handbook, Seth Killian's Vitriolic Domination 101 series.
I've actually never read the Sonic Hurricane Handbook or watched Seth Killian's videos. The only thing that comes closest that I've read through is like Geef's Gym a while back. But somebody has linked me the Sonic Hurricane guide to Footsie's a long time ago, and I never read through it. I should.
Amazon.com self-help
Maybe I'll make a video out of it.
Simplifying Street Fighter by Gootecks. While I love combo
did
videos
not
and
age
watching
well.
Pinko get angry, I wanted to know more about the game's theory. Korean OG veteran and Evo champ Ryan An, aka Laugh, was kind enough to let me, and by extension you, in on one of his theories. He feels that there are 3 archetypes of fighting game players.
We've talked about Laugh's theory on this channel before, and we've also talked about the Dunning-Kruger effect. I learned both of those things from Core A Gaming videos. Laugh's theory from this one, of course, and the Dunning-Kruger one, I think, is from another video that talks about improving at fighting games.
And most players exhibit varying degrees of each one, kind of like a radar chart. The 3 attributes we're talking about are the brains, the heart, and the body.
It's pretty funny that I got flies all over the place. It's pretty funny though that he brought up those little Street Fighter charts, because I feel like that one and the one in Guilty Gear are so useless, right? Like it just feels like a waste of resources for a development team to make something like that.
All this is
I don't even know if it actually updates.
The brains refers to the scientific player. This is the lab monster who is constantly in training mode, finding the best options and answers to particular situations. Hitbox and frame data is king, and every move and decision is calculated to provide
It's a very valuable
the best
thing
outcome
to
and
learn how to
risk.
appreciate.
The brains-based player is the most thrilled to find an option select that can cover 3 possibilities in one setup.
This is definitely something that I'm not. I'm not enough of a brain player.
Because there are virtually infinite scenarios in a fighting game, it's not possible to know every situation, and this is where being solely a brains-based player has its limits. Unfamiliar situations can be downright scary, and the fact that you're playing a fighting game and not chess means that you don't have time to analyze how best to handle it. But if you've really done your lab work, the scientific player has the most consistent and efficient way of bulldozing their opponents. In contrast, the heart refers to the emotional or feel-based player. This kind of player likes mind games, baiting, conditioning their opponent.
I'd say I don't have enough of this in my game either, right? There's not a lot of mind games going on with me. I'm pretty open book.
As Yomi in Japan. It's about riding that fine line between genius and foolishness, and somehow coming out as a genius.
I remember watching this set
A field-based player
when I was like first starting. When I was first starting, somebody sent me this set to like take a look at, because I was getting really angry at losing to like random stuff, and they were like, you know, watch this and understand that just blocking and punishing is all you have to do sometimes.
Out as a genius. A field-based player thrives in the scientific player's fear of unfamiliar situations, and will delve into the metagame.
It's like rock, paper, scissors, right? The heart player can beat the brain player.
The metagame is a game played outside of the main game that still affects the main game. But none of this matters if you drop your combos all day long, and this brings us to the final archetype to round out the theory. This type of player is known as the body.
This is the type of player that I identify most closely with, just because of the character that I chose to learn when I first started playing fighting games, which was in Street Fighter V. I started playing Karen, who has a lot of one-touch confirms, a lot of whiff punishing, and just very footsie-based character that thrives off of one-touch confirms. So you have to be good at reacting to hitting somebody and like whiff punishing and things like that. So that's kind of why I very much identified with the body player, but I've slowly been trying to transition into somebody more balanced who can, I guess, be on that chart that I was talking about earlier in a more balanced way and have a little bit of everything.
which refers to players known for their physical
I don't think it's a bad
capabilities,
thing to be a
which in
body
fighting games
player.
refers
I
to
think it gets you
execution and
very far
reactions.
until you
This
realize
is
that, hey,
actually
I
the most
don't
straightforward
actually understand enough about this game, so I need to transition into, you know, being a little bit more brains and playing and maybe taking a little bit more risk.
out of the three, and what people unfamiliar with fighting games might think is the only thing required to be good at fighting games.
Yeah,
Of
definitely.
course, this
That's how I
usually isn't
felt.
the case, but there are games that are fast-paced and require serious timing and coordination to do well. And we notice that physical players prefer characters that benefit from being able to do difficult links and combos.
Exactly. I played Karen and then I played Manat, right? Like I liked characters that very much got me moving, like got my hands moving, got my brain moving a little bit, but not moving in the way of reading my opponent or doing mind games, but like, what am I going to do next? And like, how do I do this next thing? I very much vibe with this part of the video.
This kind of required precision is what separates fighting games from mind sports like chess and poker, and is often blamed for being a barrier to new potential fighting game players.
I remember, sorry I'm pausing a lot, but I remember in elementary school, they brought in somebody to teach us how to play chess for like an entire 9 weeks. I think every single week we would have somebody come in and we'd dedicate an entire class period to learning how to play chess. And I learned how to play. I was okay, but I was never very good because I couldn't understand like the mind games of it. Like I couldn't understand that I need to think about what my opponent's going to do. I was just very concerned with how am I going to move? Like, how do I move this guy and how can he move and where do I move him? Not what the other guy was doing. It's very much ingrained in me to play like this, like a body player, but it's about kind of breaking that and
Thinking that
learning
this theory is
more
nothing
about
new.
what other
And
people
you're
are
absolutely
thinking
right.
while you're playing.
The balance between mind, body, and heart has been expressed countless times in fiction before, and one that's unequivocal about it is The Wizard of Oz.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
The cowardly lion has a brain, but is fearful. The clumsy scarecrow is brainless, but has a heart. And the Tin Man represents a physical body without any human organs. But as much fun
What
as
a
it might be
great!
to
This is what separates, I think, Gerald from a lot of other channels. His analogies and his metaphors and the way that he compares things and compares and contrasts them is so good. Like it lines up so well with this point. But it's like, how did he think of that? You know?
represents a physical body
That's why I love
without
this channel
any
so
human
much.
organs. But as much fun as it might be to make parallels between fighting gamers and The Wizard of Oz, how is any of this useful? Well, it's not terribly useful on the surface, but with some thinking and playing Theory Fighter, it can change the way you approach a match. Just off the top of my head, I might be more wary of wake-up backdashing against a brain-space player because they'll option select everything.
Yeah.
When playing a hard
You know, something really interesting is I remember watching Infiltration play, I think, Guilty Gear very early in Strive, and somebody in his chat came in and was like, I think the game is completely won in the lab. And I thought that was kind of like a scrub quote. Like I was like, oh, that's really weird to say. And Infiltration said yes. He said, I agree with that statement. And the more and more I would learn about these games and the more and more I would learn about labbing situations, I understand why somebody would say that now, especially like a brains-based player.
heart-based player, I might resist the urge to jump if it seems like that's what they want me to do. As for a body-based player, I might throw less close-range.
There's definitely a
fireballs than
balance, right? You don't
even
win the
in
game
situations where I
completely
don't
in the
think they
lab,
can
but there's a
react.
lot of things you can
All
do
three
in there
attributes are required
to
be a
make
good
your
fighting
chances
game
of winning
player,
higher.
And no one will completely embody one archetype.
Mhm.
But in big tournaments with short 2 out of 3 sets, it helps to understand your opponent as quickly as possible, especially when there are hundreds of players you've never heard of. And anything that will help you form a strategy is going to help you win.
Yeah, it looks like the winner is crying.
But of course, everyone approaches the game differently, and this is just a theory, which is why I haven't named and categorized any players. But you guys can feel free to do so in the comments section.
Well, that's all I got for you. If you hadn't seen that video before, I'm glad I could introduce it to you. And if you've never seen Korea Gaming somehow, I'll link it down in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. I'll talk to you again very soon.